This world is founded on exploration, a desire to experience something almost extinct. Extreme expeditions, exposing the unknown. This is X-Quest. Meet Frank Wolf, Todd McPhee, and Keith Clapstein, 3 Canadian adventurers attempting to circumnavigate remote Graham Island on Canada's volatile west coast.
The weather can really kick up out there. Large breaking waves or rock shelves just pummel us, destroy us. Our kayaks will weigh many hundreds of pounds, so we'll have very little control over our craft, just adrift.
Starvation, death, dismemberment, it's all there, Graham Island.
It's a 430-kilometer voyage, rift with major swells, jagged rock cliffs, devastating Pacific storms, and even some sea creatures from the deep. There's a good reason people just don't do this. It's a dance with death.
It's my passion. Often your passions can kill you.
The Queen Charlotte Islands, or Haida Gwaii as they're known by the indigenous people of the area, are a vast, remote, and mystical place. But on this calm and sunny day, there's no palpable sense of fear. These 3 adventurers are full of good cheer, ready to jump into a big water adventure. They'll start out from grandly named Queen Charlotte City on Graham Island, a logging and fishing village of some 600 people. It's here where the real test of courage, ability, and camaraderie begins.
I'm making a comfortable seat.
For 32-year-old Todd McPhee, paddling in the open ocean is no cause for alarm.
The pleasure pod.
He's a seasoned professional. Together with Frank Wolf, they paddled across Scandinavia in the summer of 2004, surviving the trip and each other. Adventure travel is in Frank's blood. But this particular trip will test the 34-year-old's ability as an open water kayaker and possibly his sanity. The wild card is new team member Keith Clapstein, age 31, the Clapper.
Are we rolling? We're rolling, baby.
Only 2 years removed from a plane accident that shattered his leg, this journey is a big unknown for Keith. An expert ocean kayaker, he should fit in on the swells of the Pacific. But the intense isolation of this long and physically draining adventure could cause tension, exposing any weakness to the ruthless elements of the coast. The Haida totems have seen canoes come and go from these beaches for centuries, but probably never a crew like this.
Checking the weather report. And sounds like it will be nice until tomorrow evening. If they're right.
For adventure-hungry guys like Frank and Todd, the chance to put another expedition notch in their paddles is what they live for. But for Keith, this trip is a self-imposed test, a challenge taken to see how well he has progressed both physically and emotionally since his accident. Together, they will set off on their month-long journey, knowing they are headed far away from civilization and any possible rescue, into weather that can take a turn for the worse in an instant.
Perfect timing.
The team will make their way up the east coast of Graham Island before turning towards the open ocean and the exposed west coast. Daily progress there will be gauged by their movement between the few safe landing areas available. If they survive that leg, they'll paddle back into the safety of Skidegate Channel and the departure point of their kayaking odyssey.
It's 430 kilometers, the route we've measured. Queen Charlotte City to Queen Charlotte City. So, all things being equal, I'd say about 21 days, 3 weeks is a pretty good estimation. It could be 2.5, it could be 4. So it's all up to Mother Nature. And Heckin Strait is kind of rated the 4th most dangerous body of water in the world because it's very shallow, and when the wind kicks up, it kicks up steep waves.
I think the biggest thing you take for safety is your knowledge.
We've got VHF radios, got a first aid kit, we've got some throw lines, some tow systems. I think there's even a knife in the boat somewhere.
The plan is to paddle as far each day as the conditions allow. With 5 or 6 days worth of food, the goal is to round roast spit and make it into Masset before the week is up, where they'll stock up before heading east. After that, there's only one more resupply before they hit the outer coast. Fishing and crabbing success will be a necessity if they hope to make it home safely. It's early in day 1, and already the sea is taking its toll.
Work it out with the knife here.
How many rocks are in there?
Thousands, I think. Our skegs, which keep the boats going straight, especially with a side wind, are jammed up with rocks already, and they're not working. So, got to figure out some way to get them going before we get into the really big stuff.
Go to Tallel and try to mooch some tools so we can fix our boats.
Fix our boats and go see some shipwrecks.
Okay, so we're here just around Tallel, and the whole landscape's getting much sandier and flatter. There's a bit of a steeper beach here, so likely to get wet when you come in. Keith is going to demonstrate now for us how it's done by a professional.
I've had some injuries to my lower leg. Little aviation accident, small plane, big hole, middle of nowhere. 22 months now, almost. 5 surgeries. Things seem to be coming together, but definitely my first time back.
That should probably help you.
Nope, no, you just keep running the camera.
When he climbs up from the beach, Keith soon realizes that his rebuilt leg is about to get an even harsher test. They've missed the town of Tallel by a few miles.
A wave.
A wave, yeah.
More than we got from some other people.
I think it's that way. No one stopping, not even the cyclists, to give us any information.
So I guess we overshot the town by a bit, eh?
Well, we need to walk for a while anyway, I guess. We've definitely walked much, much further than anything I've ever done in the last 2 years of my life.
At last. It's madness, I tell you. It's madness.
All right, so we procured this drill from the friendly massage therapist in Tallel. And this is the repair we need. So we're going to put a little string in this hole I'm drilling, and then we can manually pull down the skeg whenever I need it. Yeah. Can we also see your forehead?
What's wrong with my forehead? What does it look like?
Just bend down a bit. Oh yeah, there it is. A little bit of welt action from the boys. The black flies.
Don't like black flies.
Welted you good. For dinner today, gentlemen.
If you ask the black flies, it's Todd.
Yes. Todd McPhee with a side of beef stroganoff.
The stop for repairs has cost the team some time,
I'd rather eat my stroganoff.
but the strain on Keith's leg and his psyche could cause big problems for the remainder of the trip. So far, he seems to be taking it in stride. Todd, Frank, and Keith are only days into their month-long kayaking journey around Graham Island on Canada's west coast, but the little delays are starting to add up.
Okay, so we're hitting low tide again for leaving camp. Way the hell out there. And we kind of packed our boats a bit early, so we got to drag them, I don't know, a long way out to get to the ocean on this sticky mud. So, good times.
This is a hermit crab. It's a crab that lives in a shell until he gets big enough. Then he has to leave the shell and get into a new shell. And they fight for shells between each other. Takes him 2 hours in the morning to pack up and fill his shell and carry it down to the sea. Not unlike us. Hello. My name is Keith.
A short distance up the beach, they find an eerie reminder of the realities of boating in these hostile waters.
Sunken barge.
All right, so behind me here is the Pasuto, which is a barge that in 1928 rammed against the shore here and got stuck in a big southeast gale storm. It's been here ever since, and as you can see, the sand has kind of built up and built up and built up around it until it's basically almost buried it and only the end of the boat sticking up here.
With no gale-force winds in the forecast, the guys don't have to worry about their boats being stuck in the sand for eternity. They have other things to worry about, like sinking.
Well, we pulled into shore to take a look at the Pasuto, a wreck. And I popped off my back hatch. The boat was filled with water, the stern compartment, holding all my gear. So we have to fix it, or I'll sink.
So what do you think the problem is?
Keith's experience with boat repair is a lifesaver. And unlike the Pursuito, Todd is soon back on the water. But with the unpredictable nature of the sea, it would be just as easy to suddenly find oneself beyond repair.
McPhee, where's the clapper?
He's off wandering around naked. I don't know about the clapper. I don't know. I'm trying to make a trolling device because I don't have a rod, so if a fish gets on, it can take some of the tension when it's tugging instead of just breaking the line. I'm not exactly sure how, though.
Todd has definitely got an angrier side than myself. He's also definitely more physical and probably more able to deliver the crushing blow than myself. So when it comes time for the killing, the bashing, it's going to be Todd McPhee.
The group heads to sleep, with Todd dreaming of bashing some big, tasty fish. Apparently, the sea wasn't happy about Todd's dreams of plundering, and it's kicked up a bit of a froth.
How's the forecaster, Keith?
Sounds okay.
Undeterred, the guys head out. With only 65 kilometers behind them, the plan is to push hard for the remaining 35 kilometers towards Rose Spit and the north end of the island. But the hearty chop means Todd will have to cancel his fishing plans for now. The sea is now officially pissed. Increasing high winds have forced the guys off the water, causing another delay. This won't help the food situation. It's comforting to know that this, apparently, is the easy part.
Wind's picking up. It's supposed to be Gale-force tomorrow. Good night.
For three adventurers attempting to paddle around an island in the North Pacific Ocean, things have come to an abrupt halt. Instead of big swells, they are now being battered by high winds and biting grains of sand.
Saying it's very windy out. It's right.
Woke up this morning, everything's just covered in sand. Went over and had a look at our boats and full. It's like sleeping in a wind tunnel last night and it doesn't look like things are changing much.
One problem with wind is that the sand just kind of gets impregnated in every single little nook and cranny of your body and of your gear, so everything just gets destroyed really quickly. So it's definitely a bit of work. Day 5.
No one is going anywhere anytime soon. Time for a good book.
High winds, gusting, gale-force. I'm just reading about boating instead of boating. We're being conservative today, trying to make the right decisions. And not die out there.
All they can do is wait and watch. Watch and wait.
It's now calling for Thursday. The sea is doubling in height, 2 to 3 meters, and gale warnings in the direction that we're trying to go.
No, Gale is not an ex-girlfriend looking for revenge, but it's actually a measure of weather that means winds over 40 knots per hour and 18-foot seas. Branches break off trees, cars veer off the road, and kayakers stay huddled in their tent. One thing's certain, this tent is not going to be sufficient cover if the storm picks up, but their outdated maps provide no helpful clues.
We have been using topo maps made in 1965 to navigate up the coast here. Lots of erosion, lots of changes. So we camped last night, about a kilometer down the beach. I ran into some folks tearing up the beach in an ATV, and they said, "Why aren't you idiots in the shelter?" And we went, "Shelter?"
And now we're kind of hunkered down here. Todd's cockpit rim is broken, so we've got to fix that. And sounds like the gale is just going to get worse and worse, so it could be here for a couple of days.
A good rule of thumb. If you are going to spread resin around another man's cockpit, always wear a protective garment.
It's looking hot.
Gonna go to a little party here on Fife Beach.
He's fixing my kayak in that skirt.
And I
So he
hate
doesn't get
wrecking
resin.
clothes with resin. It's my biggest pet peeve.
Looking good, Clapper. Feeling good.
Todd needs to be easier on his equipment, don't you, Todd?
That's right.
Once again, Keith is able to fix Todd's kayak, but he can't fix their predicament. They are stuck in this cabin and losing valuable time.
I've had enough of not moving. There's a forecast for 40-knot winds. We can't go paddling in 40-knot winds. There's nowhere to go. And Clapper's just fine about that. We have nothing to eat, no snacks. We have pink bottles of juice.
It's good. Cottage life.
Cottage life.
They're not only losing time, they're slowly losing their minds.
Have you seen any frogs out here?
I've heard some.
We're looking for frogs. For dinner.
The shortage of food is starting to make the guys jumpy.
We know there's frogs. We know we're hungry. We know we're gonna find some.
Hunting frogs, you gotta decoy them. You gotta think like a frog. Hear that? They're answering back. What happened?
There's a frog over here. We're on this trail.
You heard a frog.
I'm horrified.
I've been outside trying to forage food with my very sore and recently broken leg. I needed to stay in bed, I think, or go kayaking, not just walking around.
At least the nearby swamp has yielded up something. Drinking water.
We are getting it from a swamp, the grounds of our unsuccessful frog hunt. There's a oily sheen to the water, but it pumps pretty well.
Looks like coffee.
Yes. Delicious coffee.
West Coast Charlotte, gale warning continued. Wind southeast 20 to 30 knots.
Deteriorating weather conditions. with seas going up from 2 to 3 meters to 4 to 5 meter, which is quite enormous, and gale-force winds 40 knots to 45 knots in the North Hecate Strait, which is what we are on right now. We're stuck.
Well, I think you can see why we're not kayaking today. It's a 40, 45 knot wind blowing, full gale.
It's supposed to calm down this evening, though. We'll see. Boredom. But we're doing some reading, getting some good reading done. We're gonna run out of words soon, though. Then we'll be reading books backwards. And straight from the middle, outward. Concentric circles. It's a new style of reading.
I think we'll be fine. We'll leave this afternoon.
No matter what.
I'm packing my boat. I'll see you guys later.
He can't run. He's got a bad leg. No activity for him. I don't know how he expects to survive.
It's very mean.
And speaking of mean, Todd's dug up some nice words about the nasty Hecate Strait.
Oh, yes. The Hecate is intrinsically ambivalent and polymorphous. She straddles conventional boundaries and eludes definition. She has been depicted with man-eating dogs for feet and is known as a source of abundance of all kinds, including storms.
Everyone's definitely getting a little squirrely. Keith's ranting and raving, playing harmonica badly. Todd's just doodling madness into his book. And I'm just kind of wandering around, looking out at the ocean, waiting for some sign of improvement. 4 days now. Waiting. Seems like the trip will never get going again.
After 4 days holed up in a safety shelter on a remote island beach, Frank Wolf, Todd McPhee, and Keith Clapstein can finally get back to doing what they came here to do. Be one of only a select few to complete a paddling circumnavigation of Graham Island on the wild west coast.
It's quite unbelievable. We woke up about half an hour ago and it was dead calm. So we got to leap into action and finally paddle around Rose Spit in the calm. It's fabulous.
So you can see how up here it's going to be nice and protected. So we just have to look for a little bit of a window to get up and around here, and we should be golden to get into Masset where we're going to resupply. So that's where we stand right now, and we still have to go all the way around here, back into here, back into Queen Charlotte City. And this is the outer exposed coast. Right now we're just in the Hecate, so long way to go.
If the weather doesn't hold, even the 50 kilometers around Rose Spit will seem like an eternity. The plan for today is to hammer around the spit and then push on towards Masset for some desperately needed supplies.
Can't fish because it's too stormy. We don't know how to catch frogs, and we don't have much food left.
The plan for today is to hammer around Rose Spit and then head in towards Masset for some desperately needed supplies. Still, there's always time for a pit stop when you reach an important destination in your journey.
We have just landed on Rose Spit.
the main kind of legendary thing about Rose Spit is that the Haida believe that all of humanity sprang from this very point. Basically, when a raven came down and on top of a clamshell and then opened it up, and humanity was released upon the world. So this is supposed to be the birthplace of humanity, according to Haida legend.
Humanity is great, but the guys need food now. But with Toe Hill only a blip on the horizon, there's still an excruciating day of paddling left. With the setting sun now a reality, Todd realizes they won't make Masset until tomorrow. He decides to drop his line in the waters off Toe Hill and hopes the sea spirits are kind, because the empty hole in his stomach is not.
So it's an edible fish, right?
Yes, it is. And the meat is along there.
Where is it?
From there to there.
On both sides.
Yes. It's a very small amount. And there it is. It's huge. It's not huge.
That's good eating for 3 people. I
Yes, we're gonna divide it up with pepper.
With a morsel of rockfish in their stomachs, sleep tonight will come a little bit easier.
All right, so here we are just coming into Masset Inlet, and about 8 kilometers down the way is the town of Masset, where we've sent some food for a resupply. We'll be heading out and making our way along the top of Graham Island here. This is our last break before 2-3 weeks, maybe more, battling it out on the outer coast.
As Frank and the guys paddle out, they know that the next source of food and shelter is in Queen Charlotte City, their final destination. In between will be an overwhelming test of courage, stamina, and sanity. Not to mention fishing skills.
I just went out around past the float over there, against the rocks, and brought in this little rockfish.
Got a fish head, Clapper.
Happy and re-energized, the guys contemplate the uncharted mysteries of the West Coast. But before they get there, the north end of the island will reveal some of its own skeletons. 3 Canadian adventurers are in the midst of a month-long journey around remote Graham Island. Up here, pinned between uninhabitable peaks and the inhospitable Pacific Ocean, it's easy to feel alone in the world. But Haida Gwaii, as it's known to those who've resided here for centuries, holds many reminders of those who have paddled these waters before.
Okay, so what we have here behind me is a triple mortuary pole, and it was for Chief Edinsa from 1850. And mortuary poles were basically the Haida way to bury the more honored in their communities, chiefs and that sort of thing. And they would actually bury them on top of the poles. So it's just an example of basically a remnant of that time.
Apparently, Haida Gwaii is also home to the largest black bears in the world.
Still juicy. We're told in town actually that they're out right now. The cubs are out, and so they're pretty active this time of year. So they'll definitely be in and around all of our campsites. So hopefully we won't get into trouble with them. Probably got within 50 feet of them, and then kind of stood up and looked at me, and then I shot a little bit more, and then I backed away. So, pretty big bear though, very big.
Not wanting to overstay their welcome, Frank and the boys beat a hasty retreat from shore and are soon pointed towards another unexpected sight.
So behind me here is something called Pillar Rock. It's a 30-meter high pillar of rock topped in trees. Everything else around it's been eroded away and it's all that's left. So it's a bit of a more dense kind of basalt column that kind of rises up, and everything else around it has since been worn away. And now we've taken a really good paddling day to kind of explore and check out the area, which is all part of it too, but you're always kind of conflicted with these two things, kind of like keep on going, make it around, but also you want to see the area and check it out and experience it.
A chance conversation back in Masset has led them to one last stop along the island's north coast, and the mood quickly shifts as they move towards the site.
Well, there was this Haida man working on crab traps, repairing them all day long when we were in Masset. We talked to him, and he said, "You want to find a human femur?"
A little nervous about seeing my first grave and real bones.
Successful human remains hunt. It's a little bit scary. There's some broken up old boxes that I guess the body was interred in, and some femurs, bits and pieces. It's been about 100 years or more since the Haida started actually burying people underground. In the past, they would just either put them on top of mortuary poles or have just open burials just in boxes and things like that, not actually burying them. So presumably somebody died and they moved this person's remains up here on the mountainside in the cave.
Oh, look at that femur. Look at the head of the femur. Oh my God, that's right where the hip comes in.
So this is a particularly rare discovery. A lot of these places have been sort of removed from their original locations and maybe mostly taken overseas for museums. So a lot of artifacts are no longer in their original spots, so that makes an occasion like this even more special, to be able to find something in its almost original condition. Really unique.
Very interesting, very eerie. There's definitely a spirit here that that is, yes, quite overwhelming, to say the least. Much respect to those Haida that are buried here. We didn't touch anything, just came to have a look, and now we're heading on our merry way.
If the burial site wasn't sobering enough, the heavy swell of the Pacific is sure to change the mood. The team is now in open ocean.
The channel between Langara and Graham Island is pretty mellow, coming across North Graham, and you just turn the corner and all of a sudden you're on the wild west coast. And the swells are huge, and there's all these little popping boomers around, these little shallow rocks that just kind of appear out of nowhere, just kind of gripping the paddle tight, going.
With hearts pounding, the boys are happy to find the tranquil shelter of Lepus Bay. And Todd is happy to find something else.
One of the things that we found today is a crab trap. And I think I'm going to try and dig this one out and catch myself some crabs. Nice.
Gonna make this thing juicy, smelling good. The crabs are eating tuna, and we're eating crabs. Nothing to do but wait.
I'm going for it.
There's so many crabs!
Oh my God. Look at them all.
We're gonna catch a million crabs!
We
should be out there scooping them up with our paddles.
Now, maybe Keith is onto something, as the crabs seem to mock the guys by not entering the trap.
So far, the crabs aren't going in the trap, and the boys are just kind of stabbing futilely at the water. Desperate lunges with paddles. But these are Haida Gwaii crabs, and a little bit too smart for our crew, apparently.
It's all fun and games until the weather turns and there's nowhere to hide. With a forecast of intense lows, they may need this crab simply to survive.
And it's good.
It's now the most difficult leg of a month-long circumnavigation of Graham Island on Canada's wild west coast. While the journey has been more of an adventure quest for paddling buddies Frank Wolf and Todd McPhee, it's been a self-imposed test of courage and stamina for plane crash victim Keith Clapstein.
So if we have a look at the chart, you can see there's many areas where there's not any places to stop. We've got really big cliffs, lots of rocks. Just to the south of us is the area that's only marked on the chart as foul ground.
By foul ground, Keith means uncharted and uninhabitable. Even though he's a veteran paddler, Todd seems concerned.
I've heard stories of people getting pinned down on the outer coast for weeks and just eating each other, dying of exposure.
Because it's so remote, there's no towns, there's no access there. If you get in trouble, you're on your own. So you really have to be careful and that kind of take an extra bit of caution on the west coast. You can't just kind of let it all hang out there because there's less of a safety net.
The waves are picking up, and Frank's confidence is waning.
I wouldn't call confidence wouldn't be the word, but I was willing to give it a go.
Apprehensive, the team sets off into an uneasy sea.
I was feeling a little not dodgy at times, but definitely a little queasy because of all the motion, the rebound waves, the clapidus, and then just kind of waves coming from all directions.
That queasy feeling is also the feeling that you're being watched. And the watcher is one of the largest mammals on the planet.
They were going along the coast, and we started tapping our boat to let them know where we were. And they turned into us. They started coming right at us, and a group of 4 of them they didn't breach, but they came out of the water like that. I was screaming like a baby. Gigantic.
Huge. I just saw literally about 1 foot in front of Clapper's boat was the big whale just kind of rose above the water, had his big eye out, looking at the Clapper and me and Todd. Just give us a once over, and then he dove down. But if he'd been like about 1 foot closer, the Clapper would have been
Rolling, maybe.
rolling. Yeah,
Rolling.
Yeah.
You can do a whale call, can't you? Now we're on Hippa Island. It's a pretty rocky island with just a couple of little pocket beaches that you can pull your kayak into for shelter. If it gets stormy out here, we may spend the rest of our lives on Hippa Island. Macaroon?
Yeah. We should be pinned in somewhere by a big storm. But at this point, we've been blessed. We're past halfway down the west coast of Graham Island, which is one of the most notorious paddling islands on the face of the earth. And at any moment, we could just get blown in and have these sudden, 30-footers pounding us into a little cove like this. Do you ever get the feeling that yeah.
The team's sanity is hanging by a thread as they head out the next morning, knowing that their goal is now only days away. But a reef-bound graveyard serves as a dark reminder that the sea often wins.
I'm standing at the prow of the Clarksdale Victory, which is a wrecked ship on the coast of Hippa Island. This thing was cruising down the coast. They failed to account for the wind and the current and just drove full steam right here into the shore. 49 people died, 5 made it ashore, and one of them died of exposure because they all just had their pajamas on. It was nighttime, they were asleep in the boat. They struck without warning.
It reminds you how we often take for granted. We have GPS systems and satellite phones, and this was a time when people didn't have any of that. Just made a mistake, and this is a reminder of what can happen out at sea for sure.
But just like 58 years earlier, the Clarksdale doesn't give up her guests easily.
Todd and I were just kind of paddling out past the Clarksdale Victory, where we were taking pictures of the old hulk that went down in 1947 on that very same reef. This big kind of heavy, thick curler kind of took me and boom, just washing machine me. So it's kind of upside down.
I was sitting there looking at the back of the wave, crashing and crashing, waiting for Frank to emerge. It was a good while that he was in there, getting recirculated.
Grabbed the boat and then started pulling out, and then Todd zipped in there after me and helped tow me out.
Just like the Clarksdale Victory, we failed to account for current and wind and just got too close to shore, got hammered.
All rocks. I'm glad it was upside down and didn't smoke a piece of reef, because that would have been it for me.
Yeah.
It's a big mission planned for tomorrow. Big day. We start by going across to Steel Point as a warm-up. Then we tackle the largest crossing on our Graham Island trip, all the way across Reynolds Sound, which is huge, the biggest inlet on Graham Island.
320 kilometers or so now. Another 110 to go or so.
Reynolds Channel, a 15-kilometer crossing through rough seas, the largest open water crossing in the entire trip.
It really picked up overnight, and right here where we were going to launch and where we had landed, it's quite steep, and so the swell is coming in and curling over itself and dumping right onto the beach onto this big pile of rocks. It's really nasty looking, and you could easily break your boat or yourself. So we're going to carry our boats a little ways down the beach here and put in there and just punch through the waves. Then we'll see what it's like out there in the Sound. It's a very big crossing, so it's nothing to take too lightly.
They are so close to completing their journey. But Todd knows it could all go horribly wrong with one crash of a wave.
A big long crossing like this, you sometimes have to take a pee. Traditional way for sea kayakers is just to pee in your boat, let it slosh around, wash it out a couple hours later. We pee in a cup. I'll show you.
Todd's been the pee bottle supplier.
Rebelling against the status quo of sea kayakers, I shredded this bottle and pee in it. I like to keep the edges sharp so that if I share it, the other person won't make contact. And it's kind of exciting.
8 long hours later, the excitement is over. Todd, Frank, and Keith paddle into the sheltered bay, knowing that their goal is only one sleep and a leisurely paddle away.
That was a long day at sea, with a long surf landing at the end of the day. Pretty nice.
How many hours of water today?
Look at my hand. That will tell you. It's been 8.5 hours, apparently.
In fact, it's been 3 weeks. In that long stretch of time, they've learned about the mysteries of Haida Gwaii, the power of Mother Nature, and Keith has overcome the physical and emotional challenges that his damaged leg had imposed. Now, Frank Wolf, Todd McPhee, and Keith Clapstein can kiss the soils of Graham Island, knowing that they've journeyed closer to that fine line that separates life and death as we know it, and have come away intact.